Krista, I'm really excited to sit down with you and hear more about what it is you're doing, because as I've learned, you have a 31-year history in tech, specifically being one of the only, or the only, woman in the room. So I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit and how you were able to sort of navigate that and combat that.
You know, when I think back on graduating as one of 2 women in a class of 180 guys at the time, and graduating, and even back then, companies knew that women in tech were important, and I was kind of this unique beast that not only was I a female engineer, but I was a confident person who spoke publicly and could do things. So I had a lot of job offers and was able to pick what I did. But what I didn't realize back then that I know now was my journey was all about kind of being the tech person. I identify as the tech person. I don't identify as a woman in tech. I identify as a tech person.
Yes.
And that's what's been really interesting is now with this rise of the women in tech movement, I've had to learn that that is actually rather unique. So I started work, I was the only woman on a floor of 90 men. I was the first sort of female in the room. Experienced lots of Me Too moments, but at the time, never had the strength of voice to ever want to address some of those moments. Spent my early years rising right rapidly. I think I was a VP in charge of hundreds of men with a $700 million budget at 29. And then I had that's what I did early on in my career. And then I kind of started to have children. So my next decade was having children, which is kind of really interesting, right? How you intersect that, and how you're pregnant as the only woman in a room talking about technology and creating like long distance fiber pathways and things.
From Krista the boss to mom.
Yeah, and having to blend that, and that's not a natural blend for me.
So how were you able to blend it?
I actually didn't for a long time. I would say through my children's younger years, I didn't. I really worked hard at being Krista the tech exec and Krista the mom, and I would not tell people at home what I did for a living because it would cloud how the other mothers looked at me and the other people thought of me in the workplace and at home. So I used to try to keep them really separate. So that was, the middle part of my career, that was a big deal to have to hide in both parts of my life what the other part of me really is.
And I imagine a lot of women have some form of an experience like that as well, in terms of how do you blend that duality. So when you think back to being, the only woman when you in the beginning of your career specifically, did you notice that there were things that you could bring to the table differently than the men? And how were you, if so, how did you bring that to the table?
So, it's only in retrospect that I think that it is different than men.
Right.
At the time though, I'm a very quick thinker, and I can process information. And so now when I look back at it, I think that I used to be able to bring the people side of the equation into the conversation. I used to be able to deal with not just we're going to build this, but this is how we're going to get it done, and really focus on kind of the people side of what we were doing. Back then, it never struck me that it was because I was a woman. But now when you look at it, because I knew that I always had a different voice in the room, but I was confident enough, I had these great parents who instilled that in me, that it never struck me that it was anything other than me, as opposed to the fact that it had a lot to do with the fact that I was a woman.
Yeah, and you said something that's really interesting, is that we knew that you had a different voice that you could bring. So I'm wondering, how important do you think it is to have different voices and different diversities on a really strong team or a workforce?
It's actually, it's really interesting, because I think it's incredibly important. And one of the experiences I had in my early part of my career, when I was doing a lot of this really tech stuff, is I actually had the opposite. I was accused of the opposite of racism, is where I was told that I just expected the same performance out of everybody, and that I didn't take into account that different people could do different things.
Right.
And that was really, it's a vivid conversation in my mind, when somebody came in and because they said, you know, this employee thinks you passed up on them because of their race. And I was thinking to myself, I was so white and so small town Canada. I'm a 7th generation Canadian. I kept thinking, oh my gosh, I don't even know what race she is. Like it just never dawned on me.
Right.
And that was as much of a problem as when I actually made decisions because of race. It was the fact that I expected, it wasn't the output that I was expecting the how to be in my formation and how I did the work. And so I learned that it's not only the different voices you need for their ideas, but you have to appreciate the different ways of getting work done at the same time.
That's incredible. So thank you, everybody. Krista, I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.